We're going live.
Doing it live.
Oh wait, end broadcast. Okay, I think we're live. Hi everyone. We are live. I think. Wait, I should have checked. Okay, I'm gonna have to go to YouTube and check to see that we're live. Oh, we are. We are. We did it. We did it. Am I the only person on the screen right now? I can't tell. Yes. No, I need to add this. Hi everyone. Welcome to the show. We're doing something new today. We're doing the same thing we always do, which is yell into a mic. But we are doing a live episode. I'm trying to play around with this format a bit. We're here with good friend of the show and comrade, Alex Aviña. Alex, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing, Cena? Thanks for having me.
I'm okay. I'm excited to learn this. We have a total combined one viewer at the moment. One viewer. We love you, viewer. Okay, we love you. Tell us who you are. Interact with us. We think about 7 viewers. Wow, it went up a lot. I don't know about the love status anymore. So this episode is dedicated to a precious task in my heart, a very important thing, which is insulting and ridiculing people with terrible opinions who masquerade as leftists or communists or something. So, Alex, at the end of Tanky the Tanky Therapy prior to the last one, I was denied my agency by a certain host whose name we won't mention. It just rhymes with motor. He did not let me do this. I wanted to do this. I wanted to bring one article to talk about it, to sort of like as a kind of palate cleanser, and he didn't let me. He denied me my agency. So I demand. All right, we already got our first chats. Woohoo! So I demanded to the world that I want to do this episode, and you very, very kindly agreed to come on. So I guess there's a way of sort of organizing this. There's one article in particular that made me mad. Well, lots of them. And we're going to mention a few, but I think we're going to primarily focus on... Oh, and Jay's here. Hi, Jay. Do you want to come on the broadcast and join us? I can add you to the broadcast, actually. That's interesting. So this article is... So we're going to start with what I think is one of the worst ones. It's by... Okay, did that work? Wow, that worked. Yeah, okay, that worked. Phew, that was close. I was worried about that. So here we go. This is called 7 Realities of Israel-Palestine. This is in a new venue called Brain Damage Magazine. This article is a humdinger, I have to say. It has written, and I think it's sort of like I think it sort of articulates a very old tradition in so-called leftist circles, which is people who have no idea what they're talking about, adding their voices and demanding that their analyses be taken seriously. So this is a long tradition of that, and I think this genocide has prompted a lot of people to come out and do a kind of mask-off moment. So the article is by Philip Gorovich, possible nepo baby, Philip Gorovich, and it's it just begins like this. I mean, it's just heroic in its range, because it does this very pretentious thing of reality one. These are. This is the best part. This is the best thing. Okay, this opening line is like very good. It is hard to face the current realities. There are many uncertainties around what has happened and is happening. Moral certainty is attractive when reality is uncertain. Oh my God. What a fuck. Okay, I gotta stop. I have to stop. I have to stop.
All right, so Cena, it's Alex Gorovich.
Right.
That's the author.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the author
Oops. Yeah. What did I say?
Philip.
Oh, oops. Potential nepo baby of Philip Gorovich.
You're making unfounded aspersions.
Yeah, we're not sure. Okay, we have somebody in chat. If you could look into this, do some frantic Googling and find out more about this author. But anyways, this is a very bad article, and it just starts like this. And this is like it's just perfect because it sort of articulates how things like how the Western sort of neoliberal brain in action is just purely consumer driven. So the whole thing is this what it comes down to. Like like you can tell that these realities just like this is the only point he wanted to say. Like he just wanted to write an article, right? And he did this pretentious reality 1, reality 2, right? But like I mean it's bad writing.
Things are complicated.
Yeah,
Things are complicated.
Yeah.
Things are nuanced. Yeah.
It's like
7 times over.
And the whole thing is, it is hard to face the current realities. This guy is sitting, getting paid by an Ivy League university to sit there and talk about it's hard to face current realities. Okay, so like that's the. So let's start to this. This is the first uncomfortable reality. There is no side worth choosing. Okay, like that's, right, and it's in italics.
Okay, so let me can I provide background to add to the background you provided for our talk today? So at the end of the last Hanky Therapy, the subaltern was not allowed to speak. and all of us rejected your attempt to fit this article in, and I'm the only one here today. Everyone else rejected you. I'm the sad sap that got talked into this. But I think in our group, I might have, I don't know if it was you or me who shared this article into our chat.
I think it was you. And
I think this is reading people like our friend and comrade Louis Alday and Abdel Jawad Omar and others, right? I think one of the things that they've helped me see about this whole genre of take and peace from Western leftists since October 7th is one of the things that they share is this commonality in negating the inalienable right of Palestinian peoples to engage in resistance. I mean, it's as simple as that. Part of the thing that really bugged me about this article is that it's a really it's a highfalutin attempt really to negate that fact, and that Louis Alday especially has written a lot about, right? That if Palestinians have an inalienable right to resist tyranny, to engage in armed struggle, because that's not of their choosing. That's the terrain that they're involved with, right? That's the material condition that structures and shapes the type of resistance that they can engage in, right? And I think this genre of writing, whether it's a Ivy League professor or a journalist, they all share that. They all share that inability to recognize that. So we get something like this, right? A really convoluted attempt to describe 7 different realities on the ground that are more or less based on that inability or unwillingness to accept that right of Palestinians. Whether we in the left like it or accept it or not, like who the fuck cares? It's not up to us. I mean, that's also another thing, right? Like in the end, what are these 7 reality? Yeah, it is. There's a certain like intellectual and political arrogance that I think has characterized a lot of the Western left for decades now. And I think this is, one of the things that really the hubris in this piece is also something I think that led us to choose it today, right? To kind of discuss.
Jay is commenting on your Liquid Swords shirt. What is the Liquid Swords, sir?
I'm gonna have to introduce you to Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see the first part. I was like, what?
It's just one of the greatest albums of all time.
I thought the band's name was Liquid Swords.
Oh.
Sorry, I just outed myself as a pleb. Yeah.
We can go back. We can go back to the first reality, or if you have.
Yeah, this is no. We should keep going because we were just beginning the 2 minutes of hate, and so the whole thing of we need to so reality 2. All right, okay. Reality 2. It is unreasonable to expect Palestinians not to resist, but there is no force able to represent their interest. Okay, so. But there is no force able to represent their image. I don't know what that means. Force is something that represents an interest. I don't know. Israel controls the water, trade, electricity, communications, and movement in and out of Gaza and the West Bank. Not completely true, but okay. Let's just leave that and fine. It controls Palestinian air and sea space and has blockaded Gaza for more than a decade. Israel has warplanes and tanks for blah, 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 blah. Palestinians have a right. Here we go. Palestinians have a right to resist that domination. Okay, we're with you, Phil or Alex. uh, Ibn Phil, then they would be even justified in using they would even be justified in using violence to win their self-determination if violence were necessary for that. What? They would even be like, this guy thinks he's like, this guy, he thinks that he has the right to determine what people can do. Like, really, like the
Right.
hubris of this. Like, I mean, we just said this, I know, but holy shit. Like, he really thinks he has the right to say it's not justified. But Hamas, here we go. But Hamas's indiscriminate killing does not represent a path to Palestinian representation. What indiscriminate killing, Mr.
Okay, so
Gorovich?
that something else that all these articles depend on is a particular representation of October 7th that has been gradually shown to have been false, right? Like a lot of these pieces that dismiss the right of armed struggle are based on this idea of October 7th that was fed to us right as it was happening, right? These narratives of what occurred that day that journalists since then have been able to kind of deconstruct and to undermine, and we have shown that what happened on that day was actually something way more complicated than the propagandistic narratives that were fed to us, right? One lie after another has been dismantled. But again, this genre of writing depends on a particular construction of October 7th to then negate the ability of Palestinians to engage in armed struggle. And I think that's, I mean, that whole part that you read, I think, is really is the crux of this entire article in particular. The qualifier that you included before, right? They even have the right. Well, thanks for granting them the right. I mean, that's a right under supposed international law, but thank you for being so magnanimous that you granted them the
right
right.
has spoken. The rights bestower. He thinks he's the law. Like this is imperialism embodied in a person who in a worldview, really. Which is to say that, like, this is how ideology works. Millions of people get convinced of their own superiority. Oh god, I have to switch the screen. My computer is freezing. This is going well, but we're just looking at Alex while I'm talking. Oh wait, what am I doing? I have to do this. Something. Sorry, everyone. This will be a little rough. We're still learning here, but like this is like writ large how imperialism works. It assumes that they have the ability to dictate to the world the like frame of engagement, like the limits of everything, and like even to the point of saying your liberation will look like this. I mean, it's insane.
Right, and I think to go back to the Spivak joke, right? Like, this is a particular form of can the subaltern speak? No, it can't. So therefore, let me explain it to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maddening, and I think that reality number two, as we descend into these different circles of realities, I think that's to me the core of it. That and like that when we get to the conclusion. Because in the end, if we step back and think about what is this particular piece trying to accomplish, in the end, what jumps out at people is maybe the sympathy that this writer has towards the Palestinian cause. But as you know, as Louis Alday reminds us, we have to move away from sympathy to solidarity and empathy. And part of that, again, to go back to the main point that I made, requires acknowledging that Palestinians have an inalienable right to resist tyranny, and if they use armed struggle to do so, they're completely justified in doing so. That should be the departure point. That should be the starting point for any sort of analysis, not the type of stuff that we've gotten so far.
Alex, this is very embarrassing, but we have to pause for a second because my computer has frozen. This app has broken my computer. Chat, please don't leave. We'll be back in 2 seconds. We're just going to go black for 1 second because we're pros here. And I'm going to reboot this app and hopefully I can update it because right now I can't change anything. It's just got a thing. This is very embarrassing. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm a big boy, I promise. Give me 1 second. Don't leave, everyone. I'm going to force quit. Okay, hi. We're back. Can you see me and hear me? Oh, Alex, you have to join again. Shit. Oh God, I have to get Alex back. It kicks him out. Okay, so I learned that. Oh no, Desert Mantis, don't go. So I learned that. Okay, I gotta message Alex. Oh God, I gotta message Alex. This is so embarrassing. Okay, I'm gonna. Yes, it worked. Oh, there he is. Alex is joining. Yes, guest in green room. Wait, how do I add him? Guest is in the green room. Alex, you're in the green room. Come back to the red room, to the thing room. I don't know how to do this. This is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. I don't know how to do this. How do I let you out? Can you hear me? A sign? Okay. No. No, and you're muted. Oh God. Alex, you're muted. Okay, why? What's happening? How do I... Okay, I can't hear you, Alex. This is so embarrassing, guys. Does anybody know how to use this app? Oh, wait. Oh, is that you? Yay, we got him back. Shut up, Jay. Best live stream ever. You try to use this software, okay? It's hard, okay? There's a lot of things going on. My brain is not built for this. Thank you. Wait, let's go back to my
regulars. Wait till Justin Pador watches this.
Oh my God, that was scary. Okay, yeah, I know. Justin, guys, you got people who are watching this. You don't know, and listening to this, you don't know. Justin and I are in a shadow war. We're in a cold war over live streaming infrastructure, but it's okay. Yeah, this guy thinks and the West, just like the West itself, thinks he can dictate to colonized people, like people who live under colonial occupation, who are starved and beaten and murdered and killed for 3/4 of a century. Like, this guy actually thinks that not only does it matter what he says, that he has the right to dictate to them how they can resist. I mean, it's perfect. We should keep going. So this is the other trick, is that, yeah, it's bad what happens to Palestinians. It's very bad. But Hamas is also bad. And it's true. What you said earlier, like the crux of it is that. Here we go. Palestinians have a right to the Hamas is an anti-Semitic organization that regularly states it wants to get rid of the Jews and rejects the legitimacy of Israeli Jewish claims to the land. It has given no solid account of how the targeting of civilians, especially in the horrific massacres of October 7th, would advance the Palestinian cause. And the disproportionate reprisals were predictable, possibly even invited by Hamas or parts of it. This motherfucker is saying they brought on their own genocide. Can you believe this?
They invited it.
They invited genocide. Can you believe the fucking hubris? Like, Alex Gorovich, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. You genocidal freak, imperialist, illiterate fucking piece of shit. Holy fuck, this article makes me fucking sour. Oh my God. Just this guy, people go into debt to study with him. Okay? That's how fucked we are. Like, that's how fucked like our state of things are. Sorry, I'm cursing like a sailor.
No, I mean, but look, like, I think that part, again, to go back to what happened on October 7th, I think we're still learning a lot of what happened, right? Like, there was that recent Al Jazeera documentary that came out, and that in many instances raised more questions than it answered, right? But that paragraph should get us to think about who the intended audience for this piece is, right? Yeah. So, and that descriptor of a particular type of social movement, in a particular part of the world that is now experiencing genocide. I mean, he's describing it in a way that is that Western U.S. Based audiences can render legible, right? Like, that adds, I think, to the hubris of this all. And again, so it's not like he's describing. I think there's a profound disconnect from actual material reality on the ground in Gaza, and this is more of almost like a projection of stuff that's going on in the West, in the United States, in how people are trying to interpret what's actually going on the other side of the world. So again, to go back to the other point that we made, yeah, there's incredible intellectual and political hubris, but it's also just, is this describing any sort of actual reality on the ground?
No, it's all the yeah. And first of all, he's a Zionist. Let's just say that. Like, he's saying, what Jewish Israeli claims to the land? What are you talking about? Like what? Like under whose basis? Like these guys take Zionism as a starting point. Like it's just like it's a given, right? The same way that like their own settler colonial imperialism is a given. Like this is, I mean, I just it's
I mean, that's the
disgusting.
other thing that jumps out of this article, right? There's very little history in it. Like the very
Yeah,
little history that we get
it's
is
very little
like,
substance too.
yeah, like maybe post Oslo,
Yeah,
right? But so it's like that liberal Zionist argument that like things started to fall apart after 67. It's like, no, I think one of the things that should have become a for in the last few months, and people have been saying this since the 1960s, right? Palestinians have been saying this since 48. That no, this project from the very beginning was a colonialist, racist enterprise. So there's still like some like weird mythical stuff that he's holding on to and trying to describe what he thinks is actually going on the ground.
the post-Oslo world only intensified the sense in which Hamas is the last remaining organization able to present itself as independently Palestinian. What? Post-Oslo Israeli governments attempted to defer all consideration of the Palestinian question by force. Their promise to the Jewish population of Israel was that they would enjoy absolute security by creating absolute insecurity for Palestinians. Wow, nice touch there, Mr. Dialectic Man. You did absolute security and then you did absolute insecurity. Like, you thought he's so fucking smart, especially for those in the occupied territories. The inner tension within Israel between a state that claims to be liberal democratic yet exists fundamentally for the protection of one ethnic group, because it became acute over the past 2 decades. Do you know what Zionism is, Alex? Do you know what Zionism is? Especially after the 2006 Palestinian elections of the blockade in Gaza, Hamas reflects back to the Israelis their own government politics. One of ethnic conflict maintained by force rather than resolved by politics? What the fuck are you talking about? He's saying Hamas is Israel. Holy shit! Who are the racial underclass? Like that sits at the bottom of Hamas society. Where? When? How? Oh!
Yeah, I don't. That's the other crux of this article is the equivalency that he's drawing between Hamas and Israel as a way to explain what fundamentally is going on through these
They're
seven
both
different
bad.
realities.
They're both
Right.
bad. I'm a leftist. This is so okay, here we go. During the last quasi-democratic elections for Palestinians in 2000, Hamas popularity rested as much on its anti-corruption campaign against Fatah as anything else. Gee, that's not democracy. Subsequent Israeli policy has forced some Palestinians in Gaza to support, which is a fact that Hamas can trade on. What the fuck are you talking about, man? They have popular support. Like, these people don't even fucking get how politics works. Like, this is
but they
disgusting.
don't even get historical chronology.
No.
Sina, like all you got to do is like break down what actually happened between 2006 and 2007, and that argument falls apart. It's just again the absence of historical chronology, the absence of context, the absence of some sort of perspective that goes back to 48 or to Balfour. Something is not there. His arguments fall apart to a series, so someone with a little bit of historical perspective. And that doesn't require much, just like chronology.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, like the laziness of this article, the arrogance. Like, where did he earn this sense of accomplishment that he can talk about millions of people who have undergone the most insane violence, who are going through a genocide? Like, this is so, like, if this is the left, what is the point of a right wing? Tell me. Like, I need to know. What is the even point? Like, here we go. It is it is said that this is reality 3. Yes, Hamas is a dead end. According to whom? That's not true, but that is not the end of the story on violence. Palestinians are forced to use violence. This is so stupid. I'm actually against the idea of this episode now because this is so painful. The recent
It's your
2000
fault.
It's my fault.
You are forced to use violence against yourself, Sina.
Oh God.
You did this to yourself.
Yeah. Plantation slave owners keep their slaves like mushrooms in the dark where poop is thrown at them. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Peter Pan. Like, this is like this guy clearly doesn't even understand like basic human behavior. that like you like what resistance is. Like these people don't ever get it. I mean, at one level this lends a bitter repetitive character to the violence of groups like Hamas, but as we have seen, it is not entirely pointless. Wow, thanks dude. At least some of those acts of violence have a political effect. They do create a very small momentary piece of freedom. What? Momentary piece of freedom? What does that even mean? Piece of freedom? It's not a pie. What the fuck, man? You can't even write. In this recent case, the most horrendously violent in decades, Gazans not only broke down horrendously violent, he's talking about October 7th, only broke down the fence and escaped their confines. But in few cases, they made it into the houses that their grandparents still had keys for. This might seem morally or politically trivial given the grim slaughter that followed. No, you stupid fuck. It's trivial to you because you're a fucking ass-licking piece of shit settler colonial scumbag who fucking thinks he's smart but actually has the fucking IQ of a sweet potato. But when you indefinitely confine people to an open-air prison, then a momentary jailbreak looks like freedom. Like, what is this? A baby wrote this.
Keep going. The final sentence of the section is unbelievable. Like, it's just pure violence. When you recall that roughly half of the population has lived their entire lives under the blockade that pens them in, it is understandable why some might support a horrific, dramatic, self-destructive act over the slow death and long-term imprisonment that they currently face. I mean, like, that's terrible, right? So they engaged in collective martyrdom, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, obviously he's denying that because he's like denying the agency part, right? But so let me read like a quote that I got. Thanks again. I keep going back to Louis all day, but to Louis, he quoted in one of his articles from Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela's quote is, "A freedom fighter learns the hard way that it is the oppressor who defines the nature of the struggle, and the oppressed is often left no recourse but to use the methods that mirror those of the oppressor." It's just like an objective material reality that the terrain, the context is shaped by the agent that has more power. And the agents that have less power are forced to act on that terrain. And that has an impact into the type of freedom struggle that they wage. But there's agency in that. There's the choice in that.
This is politics. As well. Like he doesn't even understand politics. The basic like laws of gravity of like political action.
What is political action? What is political struggle? Honestly, like what is Hamas? Like according to him, what is Hamas? He doesn't understand that. What is Palestinian armed struggle? What is the history of Palestinian armed struggle? What is the nature of settler colonial? I mean, there's a lot of things that are not clearly spelled out that then lead to some of these horrific type of descriptions.
Yes, this is something, man,
that you're making me suffer through.
I'm sorry.
You're the best, so
okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. Okay.
No, we're not. We're on number 4. Shit.
Okay. We're gonna speed up. We're gonna do other ones. Hamas is less an expression of wider geopolitical realities. The various attempts to understand Hamas, an extension of Iran or original forces, misunderstood just how geopolitically isolated Hamas and Palestinians more generally are. Dude, what? The gradual normalization of Israeli relations with surrounding Arab countries has been conditional on rejecting or bypassing the Palestinian question. That's correct. This is especially significant for Saudi Arabia and Iran. The rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Israel is of major significance in this light, as well as changes in relationship, blah, 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 the kind of normalization, okay? Initial reports on the contrary is that there's little evidence that Hamas's military operation was a product of Iranian attempts to sabotage Israeli-Saudi relations. If anything, it might have been the opposite, partly driven by an attempt by Hamas to undermine any further U.S.-Iranian diplomacy. Iran is really gonna sell out the Palestinians now. Like at this point, after 4.5 decades, they're gonna do it now. Right, Alex? Yeah, they're going to do it right now. Yeah. As they're arming and coordinating and dying, like, this is insane.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, a historical misunderstanding that happens a lot in the West, across political factions or political ideologies, in terms of what solidarity and internationalism has meant and how it's been practiced and implemented in the Global South by other Global South movements. So there's this idea that the Iranians wage realpolitik in the same way that the Americans do, and then that leads to the type of evaluation that you just described. After 4 decades, the Iranians are just going to abandon the struggle.
Yeah.
No, there's a different calculus there. The Yemenis have shown us this.
Yeah.
There is a different type of politics going on here that is not the type of blackmail or hostage taking or sanction regime politics that Western countries like the United States use against their proxies or against countries that they want to turn into their proxies. There's a different logic at play here, and it's one that's based on internationalism and solidarity. And obviously going back to Yemen and Ansar Allah, I don't even think they make it into this article.
Yeah, as if he even.
So I mean, that's actually kind of an important element when you're talking about the regional dynamics.
I mean, it's like it's one of those situations where like you learn more from this article about the poor state of a certain realm of debate, a certain kind of public sphere, a certain corner of the public sphere. Now, mind you, like being in our sphere, like the lefty Marxist academic, like this is a very small sphere, right? Like libs outnumber even like normie Marxists, normie imperialist Marxists by many factors. And so we tankies are in the minority. Now, we tankies outnumber them in terms of countries. There's like huge countries that are basically tanky countries, right? That like, but in the sense that like this class of people, I'm getting to this, is that like this class of people like Alex who occupy these comfortable sort of like respectable positions, these positions of like sort of discursive respectability. Like it's their job to bullshit at moments like this, as there's so much crisis, as like activism is like taking off, like there's like chaos in the streets, like guys like him need to stop, like need to sort of like pour water on things and say, oh, sorry you're having fun, kids, but let me tell you about some political realities. So like this line, it's like, here we go. This is crazy. So the more extended the Netanyahu, where is it? I just saw it. Where was it? Hold on. Oh fuck, where did it go? Okay, here we go. The only way you can safely ignore a population whose claims you are unwilling even to entertain in the sense that they were entertained under the Oslo peace process is to eliminate them. Force is a solution to the security problem only in that sense, and only when you are willing to go all the way. Okay, Captain Genocide. So far, Israel has not shown itself willing to ethnically cleanse its entire population. What are you talking about? Though it is increasingly looking like the Israeli government might be making that heroic choice. Might be making? They made it decades ago, man. Like the whole country is ethnic cleansing. God, the dishonesty to this is so vile. Like,
which he admitted to earlier in the previous reality, right? When he talks about slow genocide. So it's like the obfuscation here is, but also seen like, okay, so let's say there's hundreds of thousands of people who have gone onto the streets, probably maybe in the millions now in like Western capitals, right? Like a lot of people who have felt solidarity with the Palestinian resistance movement, right? They're out in the streets every Saturday. How do they ostensibly would be the audience of this type of piece? Like, how then does this piece help in that endeavor? The only thing that I can see that comes from this piece is if some young person has a paragliding symbol on themselves, on their backpack, they're gonna get snitched on social media by these types, and they're gonna get in trouble, like what happened in London, right? Like, they're gonna get tisk by people like the author of this article who say, you know what you're doing, the paragliding left, or whatever that other idiot referred to people in another article. They're just gonna tisk the so-called paraglider left, and in the end, the so-called paraglider left are going to damage and cause more damage to the Palestinian cause in Western countries. I mean, that's like, to me, that's the part I can't wrap around when I think about audience and when I think about what the ultimate purpose of an article like this is. What are you trying to accomplish with this? In the end, what's the takeaway from this? And it's ultimately destructive, I think, but we can talk about that.
I mean, I think that like there is a certain sector of the American sort of writerly and cultural sphere where like your job is to be the hot take machine, and this guy's like this smug, like sort of aeration of this is like, oh yeah, they're gonna hate this, but I'm gonna drop some fucking truth bombs on them. And like, this is what it is. It's an article of zero substance that doesn't make an argument, that has a series of stupid presuppositions, most of which aren't true, has no factual basis. I mean, this is the state of the the facultariat. I mean, this is like, I mean, yeah, it's an Ivy League school, sure. Like, the ghouls who go into the US military study with him, possibly. So, like, that audience is like, I mean, some of them. But anyways, I think this is too painful to continue this article. We have to switch to another one. This is too much.
Wait, but when you write something like this, there has to be an ethics of responsibility. Like, you need to know that the context in which you are writing in and the audiences that you're addressing in the West have been primed for like anti-Palestinian racism for decades. They've been primed for Islamophobia in intense form since 9/11. And then you, on top of all that, you write this shit.
Yeah.
Like, you need to know, like, what are you doing? Yeah. And this is the frustrating part. Like, you could be using your intellectual and creative energies and talents to actually help further this cause, but this is actually setting it back. You're just obfuscating a situation where a genocide is unfolding in real time, and we're all watching it, feeling powerless because we feel like we can't stop it. Another thing too to think about is also, this is also going back to this idea of Palestinian inalienable right to resistance. This is de facto denied to them in this particular U.S. context or Western context.
Yeah,
we didn't see, when the invasion of Ukraine happened, we saw all the celebration of Ukrainian resistance to the Russian invasion, right? You had universities throughout the country, like at Stanford, lighting up their towers in the colors of blue and yellow.
Yeah.
How many university presidents have come out since October 7th and called just for a ceasefire?
Yeah.
I think one. Maybe the Notre Dame president may have said something early on, but there's only one. I think Wesleyan's president has come out and said, we need a ceasefire in Gaza. It should be, that should be the default position. We're watching a genocide unfold. It should be easy to say, you know what, the minimum is to call for a ceasefire. And we don't even see that happen in the West.
Yeah.
And in certain countries like Germany, that might actually even get you into like criminal, trouble. So I think not recognizing that that's the type of context in which you are writing in and articulating some of these dumbass ideas, I mean, that's extremely destructive, I think.
So we have a surprise visitor. I may have just ruined the surprise recently by clicking the wrong button, but look who's here! Is that Louis? It's good to see you.
Why is my head so big?
I have to learn how to use the software. I think I can zoom you out. Maybe push your computer forward the old-fashioned way.
It's been an adventure, Louis. Sina's
yeah.
What have I missed?
We were learning this wonderful article about this wonderful gift to the public sphere called 7 Realities of Israel-Palestine. But, actually, Louis, this is good timing because we're about to switch to another article. It's a little old. It's, we've already kind of beaten up on it a little bit, but I'd like to return. Like, I'd like to reenact the printer scene from Office Space with this article because it deserves a severe beatdown. It is criminal. I'm talking about none other than our dear friend Adam Schitz. Yes, everybody, Adam Schitz. Here we go. Adam Schitz. Oh, here we go. Get ready for it. Get ready for Adam Schitz. Okay, this is from November 2nd. I'm sure you guys remember this, but I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back because this is such a piece of shit article. Louis, from what you remember about this article, what do you have to say? What do you think? Before we actually close read it.
The main thing that comes to my mind is that I learned not that long ago that when he was like 12, Adam Schatz was like this like pretentious pastry chef who like worked in kitchens and his dream was to be a pastry chef. And all I can think is he should have been a fucking pastry chef.
He would have done much better for the world.
Fucking elaborate French pastries, not butchering Frantz Fanon. I mean, yeah. What can you say?
What? Well, we're gonna have to say something because.
And also, I must say as well, like, what can we say that Abdul Jawad Omar did not already say
It's true. I should
So,
link to his.
fantastically.
I should link to his takedown, but it is fun just to make fun of people. Um, Many analogies have been proposed for Alex of Flood, the Tet Offensive, Pearl Harbor, Egypt's attack in October 1973, which started the Yom Kippur War, and of course, 9/11. What?
Oh,
And what?
that made Louis leave. He's
That
like,
made
"I'm
Louis
out."
leave in disgust. In disgust, he left. I hate this. This is so painful, guys. Like it. The okay. Let's forget the fact that this guy has only worsened the problem of the sort of bourgeoisification of Frantz Fanon and like the liberalification of Frantz Fanon by the university, because this is an author of a Frantz Fanon biography. Actually, we should read that article, that crazy article that came out today. Actually, should we do that? The Jewish foreskins, black masks article.
No, please no, please no.
No, I don't know what that is, but from that title, no.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I'm gonna get to the worst part. Okay, I'm gonna get to some of the. There's a lot of bad. Hold on. I think the worst parts come in the middle. I think, from what I remember. Okay, here we go. The ethno-tribalist fantasies of the decolonial left, with their Fanon recitations, he says recitations, okay? He did that on purpose, and posters of paragliders are indeed perverse. As the Palestinian writer Karim Katan wrote in the moving essay for Le Monde, it seems to have become impossible for some of Palestine's self-styled friends to say, quote, massacres like those that took place at the Tribe of Noah Festival are an outrageous horror, and Israel's a ferocious colonial power. What? That doesn't even make sense. In an age of defeat and demobilization, end quote. In an age of defeat and demobilization, in which the most extreme voices have been amplified by social media, a cult of force appears to have overtaken parts of the left and short-circuited any empathy for Israeli civilians. What do you?
He knows exactly what he's doing, of course.
Recitations. He said recitations. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Adam Shits? Like, what the fuck? Where did these guys get the arrogance? They're nobodies. Nobody knows who these guys are. Like, only losers like us even mention their names in any real front, and we're doing it to insult them. Like,
but on that front, I think the only reason it's worthwhile to do something like this and to read closely and draw attention to terrible things and terrible articles is if they unfortunately are indicative of a broader phenomenon.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately they are. And they serve a specific purpose at this juncture. I think the article that I've obviously missed you talking about, is one of the worst fucking things I've ever read.
We could go back to it.
Like, no, if you've done it,
well, we can go back to the conclusion though. We should, but
we should.
ahead.
Okay, let's go back to the conclusion. Here, I'll do that. I can do that. Here, okay, I'm learning the software. Louis, we're all learning this new software. It's very exciting.
Go through it.
Okay, the last one. Okay, was it the last paragraph?
Right there. Yeah, the very end. Yeah.
Okay, so this is for the audio people. There is no straightforward conclusion to draw. Every dimension of the situation is discomforting. While it is obvious that a ceasefire is necessary for any politics to happen, what? It seems equally clear that nobody has any serious politics to offer once the violence stops. The wider realities do not fit into a neat hole, nor do they fit easily into inherited slogans or moral formulas. They are a reminder only of the destructiveness of political impasse and our impoverished ability to shape it.
That's actually like perfect, that paragraph, because it epitomizes so many things. One of which is obviously the like classic Zionist argument of, oh, it's all so complicated. You know, it's just very complicated, and it's, you know, we don't know what to think, and it's been going on for so long, and you know, we just can't take a side. It's just so complicated, which is obviously taking a side.
Yeah.
Can you get it back up again? Actually,
Yeah.
A couple of things struck me.
Okay. You want me to go up? Tell me which way to go.
No, the final thing.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing as well is just the complete dismissal, essentially, of reality.
Yeah, and the whole article is about reality.
You know, that's the irony. That the whole thing is that, you know, this is kind of serious, sober, clear-headed guy who's going to tell you what's really happening. And he just completely ignores reality, completely speaks over not just Hamas, but just Palestinians and Palestinian politics and history generally in just the most wildly arrogant and insulting way imaginable. So I think this article is probably like an extreme version.
Yeah.
But that phenomenon of just completely dismissing the actual political reality of Hamas and others and what they say in like a really violent way, basically, is unfortunately indicative of a phenomenon which is not always as crude and like stroke inducing as this piece of shit. But it extends beyond this Alex Gurovich. You know, he is just a maybe particularly infuriating example of something that is more widely spread, as is Adam Schatz. And you know, it's something like that Abdul Jawad Ahmad spoke about, which is, you know, this complete inability to assign political maneuvering and political intent, rational, you know, thought through political intent to violence, let alone the right to wage that armed struggle. So unfortunately, you know, even though that's like an extreme example, it is indicative of a broader thing. And, you know, what's something which is particularly kind of insidious about that article and Adam Schatz and others like this is they will drop in a few lines that are accurate and a few lines that kind of will say, oh, you know, the siege is terrible, or this is, you know, it's not completely without, you know, to use that dreaded word, nuance. There's like a kind of really superficial nuance to it where they will mention certain things. Like it's not an outright Zionist argument or like an overt Zionist argument, or not always anyway, which actually makes it more insidious because it draws people in who maybe are affected by or want keen to know more about the situation. And this is the dog shit that is served up to them to make them feel informed and make them feel like, oh, I'm getting the real reality, the hard-hitting reality here, whether it's from this guy or from Adam Schatz in London Review of Books. And it also ties into a broader thing, I think, that is in a lot of these publications and a lot of these spaces, which is this kind of complete disparaging of fully supporting something, that is fully supporting a cause with sincerity and with your heart as well as your intellect is portrayed as something that is like childish or illegitimate or you know, not clever enough, basically. And I, clever academic or whatever, has to explain to you, well, why your instinctive, human and correct outrage and reaction to a situation is actually wrong. And it's all, you know, these kind of this nuance mongering, and it's, you know, and it's almost like a kind of counterinsurgency tactic. It's like there's been this upswelling of, you know, for the reasons we all know very well, massive outrage and anger and, you know, a host of emotions. And it's about trying to channel that into a way which is politically useless and harmless, and doing that by divorcing those feelings from the reality of Hamas, from the reality of resistance generally, from the you know, and this is the irony of that realities piece, is that each reality he presents is actually the complete irreality. You know, oh, we've got, like, I remember he said something about how, like, you know, Iran don't even really like Hamas anyway. Like so what are you fucking talking about? And you know, I don't think it's really worth discussing the individual's motivations. You know, like, does he actually believe this shit? Is he completely?
They believe it. They believe it. They believe it because they haven't thought about it. They don't think deeply, idiots like this. They just have a reactionary...
I think that's true in some cases. I think in other cases it is probably more insidious than that. It's kind of deliberate, or they're being fed certain things. But my point is, it doesn't actually matter, really. whether Adam Schatz or whoever else you want to talk about or could be discussed in this space, their personal motivations don't really matter, and you can expend I think a lot of largely wasted energy on trying to ascertain their individual motivations when what really matters is the broader phenomenon they represent and the politically damaging role that it plays.
Alex?
Yeah, no, I think Louis mentioned something that I was going to mention, which is these do seem like works of counterinsurgency. I mean, I think that's ultimately what they're designed to do, to sap any sort of potential support for resistance armed resistance on the ground, and by nuancing it to death, by complicating it to death, and just to describe something that doesn't correlate with anything that's actually happening on the ground, whether it's in Gaza or that one reality that we talked about, the regional dynamics. But fundamentally, I think this is what they're supposed to do. Schatz, I mean, he probably should have gone on to become a pastry chef, but I don't know. In Mexican history, we do have a war that was started by a French pastry chef, so I don't know. He still could have done some serious damage. But, what he's doing to Fanon is what's been happening to Fanon in the academy since like Homi Baba in like the late 80s, early 90s, right? It's like this long, drawn out process of defanging, nuancing his work to death as well, and really to decontextualize it from the moment in which this guy was writing, right, which was in the middle of a revolutionary anti-colonial struggle that was shaping and fueling and inspiring the theories that he was developing and elaborating in his books. But ultimately, I think Louis is right. I think these type of articles, under the pretense of academic nuance or complexity, are ultimately doing the work of counterinsurgency.
Yeah. Well, I found a doozy of a line that I'd forgotten about in Schitz's article. Hamas is an Islamic. So it's like this is. I think this is the mixed. What Louis was just talking about, the sort of mixed bag of analysis. What is Netanyahu's ultimate aim? Eliminating Hamas? That is impossible. He's correct. For all of Israel's efforts to paint it as the Palestinian branch of the Islamic State and as reactionary. Hey, listen to this. And as reactionary and violent as it is, Hamas is an Islamic nationalist organization, not a nihilistic cult, and a part of the Palestinian political society. A part of Palestinian political society. Semicolon. Here we go. It feeds on the despair produced by the occupation, and cannot simply be liquidated any more than the fascist zealots in Netanyahu's cabinet. Or, for that matter, the terrorists of the Irgun, who carried out bombings and massacres in the 1940s and later became part of Israel's political establishment. I mean, this guy, he really compared. Like, first of all, it's not even like the whole thing of like, oh, occupation. It's like Gaza is not occupied. Gaza was liberated of occupiers, and they did it with violence. The occupiers are surrounding Gaza. And right now they invaded Gaza. So like he can't even correct. He doesn't have the basic information of like the terminology to describe the different kinds of Zionist colonial control over the region. And that's principally the reason why Gaza has been blown into smithereens, because it achieved a tiny nominal amount of sovereignty, right, of independence from Zionism, and that is what that it's being punished for, and that's why it does that. But yeah, it's this man. This was like, and this was November, right? So like, from then on, I don't know. This fucking thing, man.
His piece. His piece was used by like the responsible left.
Yeah,
but like when it came out, it was like, oh, this is what the left should be. This is how the left should be thinking about and analyzing what happened on October 7th, right? And this is what the earlier point we made, Sina, right? That these articles all depend on a very particular construction of October 7th. And thanks to the work of a bunch of journalists, including Electronic Intifada, right? We're starting to learn that it's all bullshit, a lot of it. And, what then happens to these articles that hinged on that particular representation, to then write the kind of stuff that Schatz and
I think that was one of the most the one of most must have been deliberate and insidious things about Schatz's piece is that even though it was, it was November, it was relatively, not that much time had passed, and there still was a lot unclear. But none of that lack of clarity comes through in the piece. And October the 7th is spoken about as something that we know exactly. Then in November, we knew exactly what had happened, and so it could be talked about in those terms. And that was a deliberate choice. And whether that choice was kind of more conniving, or was it was because of a complete lack of awareness of the extent to which Zionists lie, and how much those initial reports should have been taken, not with a grain of salt, with a sack of salt, which very quickly came to be clear that was the case. And so and I think what you said there, Alex, is really true, is that a lot of people, even though probably more people than we care to admit, before taking a position on things, whether it's on social media in real life or even just what they actually think, they wait. There is a kind of waiting for shit. How should I react to this? And articles like Schatz's kind of fill that vacuum, and are pushed by people to fill that vacuum very deliberately. And the extent to which that is a success, and how kind of ultimately meaningful that is materially is I guess a different conversation to some extent. But it's definitely representative of a broader phenomenon. And again, it's not only accepting uncritically the Zionist narrative of October the 7th, it's just this complete, and that paragraph that you just picked out, Sina, it perfectly represents what I was talking about, where they will combine seeming accurate nuance. So he says, Hamas is not this, but literally in the same sentence, he's calling it, like ghastly and vicious and reactionary, but not, to that extent. And then directly conflates it with fascism, the most really reactionary right-wing fascist elements of the Zionist state. And it's just so, and it's, again, I don't think the actual beliefs and motivations of them really matter that much. It's about the impact and what all these pieces do. I mean, I'm not sure what else you have spoken about and what else you're going to speak about, but what I can imagine the kind of things you're talking about is they just create a bogeyman of Hamas, which is, literally speaks over them, has no interest in their actual political program. If anything, it will mention the charter, which they updated a long time ago. Has no interest in their recent statements, has no interest in the lengthy, press conference they delivered about October the 7th. There's no interest, or even it's worse than no interest in most cases. I think it's intentionally to speak over that reality, and also as well, like another common thing which Max Earl has wrote a really good piece for Ebb about is this trope that Israel basically supported and funded and created and propped up Hamas, which is insanely disingenuous and inaccurate argument to make, but it enables people to take a anti-resistance, anti-Hamas position, but do so in a way that kind of doesn't impact their leftist credentials, because they're saying, well, they're bad because Israel propped them up. And that's a very common thing amongst this writing. But it's mainly this, like, another person that exemplifies this, and I maybe should have sent you this as a suggestion to look at, was
I can find it.
Gilbert.
No,
I mean,
okay.
no.
Just don't find it.
I got it. This is what this episode is for, guy. It's the 2 minutes of hate.
It's honestly not worth it. I will just say one thing. Gilbert Achar wrote a reaction to October the 7th relatively early on, which has, some fairly strongish words about the reality of Gaza and, the situation, but then describes Hamas as, basically says they only did this because they're religious fundamentalists and they've got,
God.
dreamlike,
Did he really say that?
wild aspirations. I mean, it's actually worse. I can't quite remember the wording, but like basically,
that's what the name of the article. Do you remember?
no.
You don't. You've brained it. Initial
But,
comments.
and
Here
what,
it is. Here it is. Initial comments on
and what,
Hamas's October counteroffensive. Oh, here we go.
yeah,
folks.
that's it.
Get your
What is
hating goggles
particularly
on.
and what is particularly egregious about this is that this is from Gilbert Achard, whose position on Syria was essentially it's all the US's fault because they didn't arm the quote unquote rebels enough. And this is a man who, essentially supported NATO's destruction of Libya, although he tried to kind of nuance his way out of that position, but that was his position, and has just been absolutely despicable on Syria. And then his position on Palestinian armed resistance is to dismiss it as like the absurd actions of a, religious fundamentalist group that have got, no chance of like achieving anything with what they're doing. He's not calling for a no-fly zone here in Gaza or calling for the Hamas to be armed with more heavy weaponry, which is literally what he did regarding Syria.
Yeah.
But so lots of these people and lots of these articles that there's like stuff that underpins it, and it's all about, as Alex said, pushing people away from understanding the reality, pushing people away from Hamas and the resistance generally, and deliberately and willfully misleading, misinforming people, but doing so in a way that it's making them feel like they're more informed, and they've got nuance that simplistic people who are shouting in the streets, God forbid, are kind of missing, and it kind of makes them feel like morally and intellectually superior.
Alex, what do you think?
I was thinking of Max's article that you referenced, Louis, when he brought up that trope of Hamas being secretly supported by Netanyahu, and he's like, but at the same time they were building an entire underground infrastructure of tunnels in anticipation of continued armed resistance and movements, right? So it's kind of like a weird, illogical statement to make by folks who are trying to make that connection. But I think that connection, again, it serves a purpose of that we see in Gurevich's article, right? That Hamas and Netanyahu are government are mere reflections of one another, and that then leads to the conclusion that we read. Well, we can't do anything. It's all terrible. It's all horrible. It's too complicated. There's no good sides. I mean, that's the insidious part of it. The insidious part of it is to make the argument that there's no quote unquote good side to support, and therefore we are what? What are we supposed to be? We're the meme from True Detective Season 1 where the Matthew McConaughey character is smoking the cigarette, right? Like that's all we're left with.
Yeah.
But and again, I think that's something I wanted to say earlier and I forgot. I think another common thread of these things is to sow political defeatism and apathy. Like it's all fucked, everyone's horrible. This side is bad. That side is bad. This is complicated. And it sows confusion, it sows apathy, and it sows defeatism. Whether it's kind of outright saying, Hamas only did this because they're religious fundamentalist extremists who, blah, 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 or whether it's saying, in that Gorovich article, he says something like, Hamas is a dead end or something really dismissive like that. He doesn't explain why that's the case, because obviously that isn't the case, but he just says it. And it's about kind of curtailing and forestalling hope, basically, and belief in change. And that article is like a really transparent version of it, but it's in lots of things by lots of people. That kind of like Jacobin crowd, whenever it's needed, a piece will come out saying, oh, actually that correct anti-imperialist position you've taken, no, it's far more complicated than that. Oh no, simpleton.
Speaking of which, I do have one dishonorable mention from Jacobin. It's not a particularly egregious. It's just really stupid. It's just really stupid and basic, and it just symbolizes, I think, one state of it, that the fact that there is this obvious genocide going on is that it forces these I think you're right. Counter-revolutionary spaces and kind of public corners of the public sphere to really commission these articles. But if you actually read this, this is the most milquetoast, nothingness, just empty, hollow, quoting MLK, and then faith communities have historically been a crucial part of the anti-war movement. This is because our fight to end imperialism requires us to motivate millions of people to take action to force our ruling elite. What? Like, it's all just like nonsense, emptiness. And then at the bottom is the real payoff, okay? Like, this is just this article is the Platitude Express, okay? I'm going to say that. It's true. And people, you can read it yourselves and confirm for it, but this is really where it is. Our faith in each other and in the finite nature of our movement motivates us to build political organizations that can continue to organize for Palestinian liberation in the halls of power, even when street protests wane. What? This means electing more representatives who will vote against aid to Israel, changing our electoral system to reduce the impact of lobbyists, and make it easier for principled anti-imperialists like Rashida Tlaib and Cory Bush to win elected office, and building a powerful machines that can keep those representatives in power. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, what is that? like
Principled anti-imperialists who vote for sanctions against destroyed countries.
Like, and the whole thing about like, oh yeah, it's just like, oh, here, just elect the stupid Democrat. Like, that's Jacobin's solution to everything. That's all they ever say. So, just elect.
I mean, that paragraph was essentially Jacobin.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of distilled into one paragraph.
Okay, Alex,
really
you brought this article. I actually don't have the full thing. It's from the Craplantic. What? Okay, unfortunately, I don't have the whole thing. Maybe you can, or maybe you can access it and we can share your screen.
I'm worn out. I don't want to.
I can't do.
You've worn me out. This is just. No, in a way though. I mean, this guy Phil Clay is a veteran of the Iraq War and all this stuff. But I think it's worth checking out because I think his description of objective reality on the ground is probably likely more accurate than the other pieces that we've read. Even I don't, the takeaways in the argument I think are bullshit because I think I sent it to you because this is like a genre that we're starting to see, right? Especially in the last couple of weeks where people are starting to realize, oh shit, like there is actually a genocide happening and certain left writers are starting to move in a certain direction. And this is like the extent of their movement. Like, we have to call out the violence. We have to call out this genocide, but that's where they stop. And so there's a certain value in that, I guess, right? Calling out that the U.S. is funding and financing and enabling this horrific genocide that's going on. But it is interesting to see the movement away from a previous position. I mean, like, I remember the insane discussions we had we witnessed online about the bombing of Al-Shifa, right? Like, which seems so fucking long ago. But people doing long threads on Twitter talking about how it was a Palestinian rocket that killed all those people. And now we just saw the horrific images and the horrific, death squad killings that happened in Al-Shifa in the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, I think that article, I sent it to you, Sheena, just as like indicative of like, there are some like more liberal writers who are starting to move a little bit. And I think it's interesting politically to track that movement, but in a way that's not perhaps as destructive or insidious as the other articles that we've talked about today.
So it's been over an hour. I'm gonna try to wrap it up soon, but I think I wanted to actually bring this. I was gonna message you about this, Louis, actually, because Louis and I have had this like long-standing argument over the role of media. And I was thinking about it the other day, and so Louis and I, like, my position was, media is mostly the analogy that I always pull is like it's just a kind of like a play area for a certain class of people. It's a playground. It keeps a certain class of people employed and busy, and it's a kind of busy work. It's sargami, we say. It's like keeps your fingers busy, keeps your hands busy, it keeps your hands occupied or whatever. But I've come around. I'm watching for the last 6 months and watching the sort of insidious coverage or lack thereof in most of the cases of the mainstream news here in Canada, but also sort of the Anglosphere, I've started coming around to Louis' position. And Louis' position, I mean, Louis, you can articulate it yourself. But essentially, he made this point against me. He said, I don't dismiss the media. The media plays this vastly important role, not just in manufacturing consent, but ensuring that a certain sort of narrative around around whatever, geopolitical, whatever, conflict, I don't know how you want to use. But I mean, but that's basically in a nutshell, are kind of running back for it. And one thing I realized is that even if the Zionists like got ridiculed out of the media, I don't think there would be a fundamental change in how like the primarily lib media, because the right wing loves Zionism. They're all evangelical psychotic chuds anyways. They love it. They would love to just just hose down Palestine with white phosphorus. But it's the libs who pretend to have a kind of like, oh, ethical concern. And of course they're the ones who, and that concern is weaponized all the time to destroy countries. Case in point, our entire lives, we've watched countries get destroyed in the name of saving lives. Yugoslavia, Iraq, Syria, like Yemen. Like, this is to save lives, you must kill them. I mean, this is the basic operation of the liberal model. And I'm beginning to realize that in the face of so much evidence of Zionist crimes, the wholesale silence, that's the operating, the most basic kind of operating system. Like, it's what in computers, what is it, like assembly language? It's like the basic language of, it's like ones and zeros of a computer, and how like operating systems are programmed in assembly language. And I mean, I've never coded myself really, so it's just like ultimately like the underpinning framework of coverage is one of silence. And that silence, like that silence is something that says to me that like, oh, it's when like the some lives just don't get mourned, right? Like that Palestinians simply do not deserve life, like that they do not deserve mourning. And the sort of abstract, like I think that's the basic operation here. And that from that you can explain the wholesale silence, the just baffling loyalty to the Zionist narrative on every occasion, and ultimately just falling back on silence. Just saying like, oh, it's really bad, explosion, some people killed, even to the point where Israel murders aid workers, Western aid workers, the people that we're allowed to mourn, that the liberal media is supposed to mourn, and then it's just complete radio silence. So I'm actually coming around to your worldview, Louis. I hope you know. I hope you feel happy.
As you should. I mean, one thing that just came to my mind when you were speaking there is I think it was yesterday, there was an interview on Sky News, and a nurse who had previously been in Gaza but wasn't.
I saw that.
And this interviewer had the gall to ask, were Hamas in the hospital? And I wish I could remember her name. Unfortunately, I can't.
I'll find it.
She basically just says, like, I cannot believe you're still having this conversation, because it's to ask that in the context of what was kind of, I mean, we already knew some of it, but the extent of the horrors that were revealed yesterday, to in that moment ask, oh, but were Hamas in the hospital, is just so violent and so obscene and so telling, because it's essentially what it's doing is still looking for a justification.
Yeah.
Yep. Because if Hamas were in there, then maybe we have to view this violence differently. Is essentially what that question is intending or implying. And you're right. In the kind of colonial ontology that the Palestinians, not only the Palestinians, but right now it's particularly salient, the Palestinians are subjected to. They are non-people. Whether they exist or not does not matter to virtually every Western power structure, institution, and organization that you can think of. They are non-people, and that's one of the extremely clarifying things, if there was any doubt, about the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the consequences of that, Louis and Sina, I think you've mentioned this before on another show, is if they're non-people, then they're not to be trusted. They're not to be listened to. Anything they say cannot be verified. So that's been part of the media struggles in the last 6 months, right? We have Palestinian testimonies disseminated mostly through social media networks, testifying to this genocide from the very beginning. We've gotten testimonies from people on the ground in Al-Shifa for more than 2 weeks, but they cannot be believed. They cannot be trusted.
Yeah.
And we saw that from the very beginning, right? The way they qualified every sort of like government institution in Gaza, there was a reason why they identified them all as like Hamas run. That immediately disqualifies any Palestinian living in Gaza from being believed or trusted when they are providing their testimony of the horrific shit that they're experiencing and that they have lived through.
Yeah.
So it's that burden that all like movements engaged in anti-colonial revolutions have faced. And the crazy thing about this situation is that we've seen it in real time. That's why it's interesting that social media networks have allowed folks to in real time challenge bullshit coming from places like the New York Times. It used to take a lot longer. We recently had the 68th year anniversary of the Brazilian military dictatorship taking power in Brazil, 1964. And I can't remember who online did a whole long thread of like New York Times articles that essentially like before, during, and after the coup was just justifying the entire thing. But that's been sped up.
I have the video.
And we see that in operation now.
Sorry, Alex, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I did find the video that Louis mentioned. Let me see if I can switch to it. Okay, here we go. Okay, and why isn't it bigger? Oh, I have to zoom out or something. Oh God, what am I doing? Oh, I have to do that. What am I doing? Oh, that's my Twitter. Okay. Oh, that's why. Okay, yeah, that's why. Here we go. Sorry, we're still learning. Everyone stay with me. What am I doing? Oh God, where'd it go? Okay.
You're a pro, Sina.
I'm a pro. I'm getting through this. Okay. Okay.
Best live stream ever.
Wait, no, that's wrong. We're streaming on a Sunday afternoon.
And look, the picture you paint is one of devastation. You'll know that the Israeli military say that they have killed and detained hundreds of Hamas militants within the Al-Shifa complex. Do you know if Hamas were there and were fighting with the Israelis?
I am just shocked that we're still having this conversation. They executed tens of people point blank, including one of our colleagues, Dr. Ahmed Khalalati, who's a very experienced plastic surgeon, him and his mother, who's also a physician. They executed people point blank. And including many of our colleagues who've been detained now, we haven't heard back from them. Previous students of mine detained, young doctors detained. We don't know if they're dead or alive. They have been gone for over 100 days. So to say that this is a strategic targeting of Hamas is an insult to our intellect and our humanity. This is a destruction of people who heal. This is a direct targeting of healthcare workers. I just want to paint a very brief picture of what healthcare workers are telling me there. They're saying that when they leave the hospital, civilians give them civilian clothing because wearing scrubs is sticking a target sticker on their back. That is how systematically healthcare has been targeted. And frankly, in the last 24 hours, what we've seen from Al-Shifa Hospital, what we've seen from Al-Aqsa Hospital, and what I worry is coming to the remaining hospitals of the Gaza Strip, because it has been the pattern and we will not ignore it, is a direct and systematic targeting of healthcare that is unjustifiable.
Yeah, so there it is.
Amazingly expressed by her. Particularly the line, an insult to our intelligence and our humanity, which I think epitomizes so much of what we're talking about.
Yep.
I think that's going to be the name of the title of the episode.
That should be the title to this. I mean, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, like I think if anything is that like our ruling elite thinks very little of us. I'm like choking myself with my kufiya. I keep readjusting it. Sorry, guys. Our ruling elite think nothing of us. They laugh at us. They hire a class of normie monsters to lecture us. They, insult our intelligence and think we don't see what they're doing. And at the end of the day, I like firmly believe that Israel will be the downfall of the West. Like this little racism project that they've been cultivating like it's some genocide greenhouse. Like it will go down in a fiery flame because I mean I tweeted this earlier today is that it's subject to its own internal contradictions. That's the biggest threat. That's its most mortal threat. And the violence we're seeing is an attempt to overcome those internal contradictions. So like that for me, I think is that the dishonesty of the discussion right now, like forget the fact that they just don't cover Zionist crimes. They don't. It's okay. It's fine. Right? Like it's hemming and hawing, corner here, corner there, I don't know, but the Palestinians simply do not deserve life to these people, and that is the basics. And until and the hopes, I don't know. I kind of want to do an episode. This is for a future episode on the meaning of Telegram, the app, because where would we be if we didn't have Telegram? In a sense, because all of the news sources are a closed loop. Like the mainstream news sources are a closed loop. They feed each other. They take press releases from the Pentagon, from whatever the governments, the Western governments, NATO, with of course Zionists. They take all they're just stenographers, right? And so like the little bit of like quote unquote objective news coverage we have basically consists of people who like watch Telegram and repost things from Telegram. So I'm like at the point of sort of thinking about what would it be like without Telegram? What would understanding this genocide be like? And would it be, I don't know. It's something to consider for future because, we've been inculcated with the idea of never again, right? Like this is one of the sort of like the basis of our kind of our supposed geopolitical order is that you have this era of post World War II where we wouldn't let it happen again, what we let happen. But like, what are you talking about let happen? They made it, like it's been happening this entire time. It's been unfolding, like all of these genocides have unfolded in different theaters this entire time. Like that to me is like, this the basis, and if anything, Israel, I think, is the peak of this, and the sort of Hitlerite desires of the Zionist leaders to sort of drag the entire region and probably the world with them is, I think, the writing's on the wall for the West, and supporting Israel is its kind of swan song. I feel. I don't know. Maybe that's wishful thinking.
No. Just to back up your earlier point about ruling classes mocking and laughing at us. I don't know if you guys saw Netanyahu's video explaining that they were gonna. Yeah. But he's smiling and basically laughing, talking about how they're gonna investigate the assassination of the World Kitchen workers that happened yesterday. I mean, that's just that's mockery right there. I mean, you could see it in his face. He's basically laughing.
Whether it was deliberate or he just couldn't contain himself,
Yeah. He couldn't.
Again, it doesn't matter. He's the smirk on his face is and his face is just getting more and more evil. Like it's
Oscar. It's Dorian Gray. It's Dorian Gray. It really is.
It's really a terrifying head.
All right, score 1 for Victorian literature on that one, folks. All those years of study.
Can we mention like good pieces before we leave?
Yes. Yes. We end
all right. So. This is good. And I have a colleague here in Arizona. Their name is Taylor Miller, who published a piece in the Avery Review, which is really good, about border smashing and the connection between Palestine and the U.S.-Mexico border. So it's something called the Avery Review. Just Google it, Taylor Miller. It's an excellent piece, I think.
I think I found it. Is this it? Wait, how do I do this? Oh, well,
and then that ebb issue that you put together.
A pause on possibility?
I think that's the one. Yeah, I can't remember the title.
Yeah. Okay. I'll link it in the episode. Thank you for that. Well, folks, Louis, Alex, thank you for this. Thank you, chat. Thanks for participating. It's nice to have you guys. We're going to do this more. We appreciate everyone who stayed. This video will be up on the YouTube. But I look forward to more, and yeah, let's do this again. Thank you, guys.
What did Jay say? Jay's comment at the very beginning?
Oh, best live stream ever.
Best live stream.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Most advanced live streamer. Okay, bye guys. I can
Peace.
finish.
Bye.